morning, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm going to be talking. I was reading a lot of articles last night about some pretty crazy crime and some shocking things about who's coming over the border. And I thought, you know what? I want to talk to you about that today. This is becoming a bigger problem when you're paying attention to this sort of thing. And this is the types of crimes and the things that the mainstream media does not want you to know. And so I think it's really important for me to bring this information to light and to talk about it and to make my viewers aware of it so maybe they can share it with their family and friends and understand that this is going to become an issue, a much bigger issue in the coming months. First of all, before I get into all of that, I just want to say, I'm praying for President Trump. I know that we're waiting for the jury deliberations to end. They're in New York, and I'm just praying that these jurors, even if it's just one of them, that they see what they are trying to do with the justice system in the United States and how they are politically targeting President Trump to try and manipulate an election. And so I'm praying that God's intercession will come to the minds of one of those jurors and they will stand strong and say no. So I did want to say that today before I got started. But so it's going to be one of those days where I'm going to be bringing up a lot of articles because, like I said, I got some shocking stuff sent to me. And it's never fun to share this type of stuff. But like I said, I think it's necessary for everybody to know and for us to have conversations about it. And I don't know if you guys are aware that, let me get to my share screen. I'm sorry, it's such a process to share something on the screen. It's like a bunch of buttons I have to click to get this on here. So I don't know how many of you are aware that the cops are on full alert after ISIS threatens the Cricket World Cup match on Long Island. So this came out yesterday. So we've got ISIS threats that are happening. There's been no specific threat of a terror attack at Eisenhower Stadium during the June 9th match. Cops are taking no chances when the international championship comes to town because ISIS had threatened to disrupt an upcoming Cricket World Cup between India and Pakistan. So if anything like this happens, and look, I'm not stupid enough to not know that there could have been some cells and some activists, activated people already here in the United States to do anything of ISIS's bidding, right? But when you've got the open borders the way that we've had them, and when you have the amount of Middle Eastern fighting age men who've been crossing that border, we see video after video after video of it. You have to believe that this has bolstered their presence here and bolstered their confidence that they're going to be able to pull off some more of these type of 9/11 attacks on the United States. And this is going to lie squarely on Mayorkas' shoulders and Biden's shoulders. Specifically Mayorkas, because he's a lying, treasonous, and I'm going to say it, pig. That's how I feel about him. And I want to show you one of his latest statements because, I was just so furious last night reading through this and looking at his face and knowing how he has no conscience and he does not care about lying to the American people. Clicky, clicky, all these buttons. Actually, this wasn't before Congress or anything, but he was being interviewed with CBS News immigration and politics reporter. This crazy dog, she just slipped and fell because she's in a zoomy mood this morning. He stated that the Biden administration has done an extraordinary job to deal with an unprecedented level of migration, and that the unprecedented levels of migration are due to other factors. Mayorkas responded to arguments that the Biden administration has encouraged people to come to the border by stating that is false. If you take a look at migration, not just at our southern border, but in context, the level of migration throughout the hemisphere is unprecedented. And throughout the world, it's the greatest level of displacement of migration since World War II. I think there are about 73 million displaced people in the world. And the reasons why people leave their countries of origins are those with which we are quite familiar: extraordinary poverty, violence, extreme weather events, corruption, suppression by authoritarian regimes. Okay, so Mayorkas has had plenty of time, and his staff, to put together and come up with this kind of a statement, because this is nothing talking about migration throughout the hemisphere. This is nothing that he's ever been talking about when he's been questioned about anything that I've heard personally. And of course, you know, they're going to talk to him and huddle and have these sort of things of what kind of a statement are you going to make? Oh, well, you know, we got to look at what happened in Europe and all the immigration that happened there, all those people displaced because of war and whatnot. Well, that's great. And extraordinary poverty is not a reason for a mass invasion of our country. Violence is a bunch of garbage. You know, like I've talked about before, El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the world right now. Crime rate is way down because of the new leadership there. And none of these people that are coming over the border and they're interviewed by independent journalists are saying, well, I'm coming here because of the violence in my country. I'm coming here because of the war in my country. We know where the wars are in the world. They're in Ukraine. They're in Israel. They're in Palestine. And there's some ongoing wars that are happening down in the African continent for sure. But there's the cartel in Mexico. But there's hardly any people crossing from Mexico anymore. These are people from all over the world. And by the way, the countries that a lot of these people are coming to from Africa are not countries that are experiencing violence. They are like tourist destinations, and people are pretty well off in these countries where these people are coming from, the different countries throughout Africa. So that is a bunch of crap. Extreme weather events, of course they're going to name that, because don't you know climate change is a huge threat to humanity? I mean, come on. You know, we got to be dumb if we don't believe that, right? And I believe, you know, I've seen so many Instagram posts and Twitter posts and stuff about the cloud seeding and, you know, all of those paths and those lines that of stuff that come out of the planes. I'm sorry, I got something on my face and I can see it out of my eye. That's probably just a piece of loose skin. But anyway, I wonder if that type of weather disturbance is happening, and that's why we're having extreme weather events. You know, it's pretty interesting. I was watching one little video on Instagram where they were showing where those patterns of the clouds, it was almost like in a grid, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We're up in the skies, up in the atmosphere, 2 days prior to Dubai being flooded as terribly as it was, that rain coming in, that unbelievable amount of rain that they got in a short amount of time. And you have to wonder, is this world governments working together to manipulate the weather? Because they have to do things to make us believe that this climate change situation is real. And they will go to any lengths to do that. And that's the unfortunate thing. They don't care if they flood out a city and causes millions and billions of dollars worth of damage. That is going to play into the narrative of their story. They don't care how many lives are lost when they cause this sort of weather event to happen. That plays into their agenda, right? That plays into their narrative. And I thought it was so stupid when I heard recently where somebody was saying, some climate change activist was saying, these hurricanes and tornadoes, they're getting worse and worse and worse, and it's causing more and more damage, the amount of damage and the amount of money it costs to fix everything. No. The wind speeds of the tornadoes and the hurricanes are not getting any greater than they've been in the past. What's different is cities and towns are growing, and there's more building going on, and there's more loss of that type of structure, and building costs are going up. So the cost to repair the damage from these storms are going up. It's not because the wind speeds are going up. I mean, we all have a brain. We've all listened to what the wind speeds of the hurricanes are. We know when it's a category 5, it's bad. We've had several of them in the past, in the way past, back in history. The tornadoes are a little iffy in my mind with these weather patterns and how they get these fronts to move through. And there's a lot of evidence and people start posting, because there's a lot of people who really pay attention to that sort of thing. The chemtrails, that's what it's called. I couldn't think of the name of it. There are some people that are very dedicated to that. And occasionally I'll come across a video or two on Instagram, but they keep track of that sort of thing. And then when there's huge storm systems moving across the United States, they kind of have evidence. Well, where this big storm system started, there was a bunch of chemtrails 1 or 2 days before that. So it is put a big question mark in my mind. What is going on? But so when they talk about extreme weather events, they've had a lot of storms. When these people are coming through the Darien Gap, through the jungle there, down in, as they come out of Colombia to get up to Panama, it's going to cause devastating effects. I mean, the jungles are used to getting heavy, heavy rains. And then you've got these people walking through the jungle up and down these mountainsides, and they're slipping in the mud and falling and injuring themselves. Stay home. Don't get yourself involved in these extreme weather events. Stay home. Keep your fighting age men home so that they can work and make money for your families, or become activists in your country and rise up against a regime that may be overly hard on your citizens. You don't need to come here and start causing trouble, because that's what's really happening, folks. Mayorkas also mentions corruption. They leave their countries because of corruption. Well, they're coming to a country full of corruption. That's what the United States has become. A circus of corruption. We got a former president being hounded. He's been the most investigated. Dennis Quaid said this yesterday, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Trump has been the most investigated politician in history. And that is the truth, folks. And they still haven't been able to find a way to bring something down on him. And that's what worries me about this New York jury is, are they going to think that it's up to them to finally make something happen to him? That's the New York state of mind, unfortunately. So, corruption, you leave corruption, you're coming here because of corruption. Supposedly, that's what Mayorkas says, violence and corruption. Yet, these Venezuelan gang members come here and cause violence and corruption and suppression by authoritarian regimes. They're leaving it in Venezuela, but they're coming here and expecting the United States government to react and act the same way that the government did in Venezuela, by handing everything to them and giving them everything for free. And this is really becoming a burden on the American people, the American taxpayers. He also said that we have done an extraordinary job to deal with an unprecedented level of migration. The reality is that some people do indeed try to game the asylum. Some people, Mayorkas, try like 95% of the people are gaming the system and you're falling for it. And he says, and we deal with it accordingly. BS. And importantly, the bipartisan legislation that failed today for the second time would have equipped us with more tools to deal with those individuals who seek to game the system. Okay, look, Mayorkas, it is not going to take more money for you and your men to figure out that these fake asylum seekers are gaming the system. If you would just open your brain to the fact that over 95% of them are gaming the system and turn them all back and not allow them to come into our country to sit around and wait and gather everything they can for free at the expense of the American taxpayers as they wait 9 or 10 years for a case before a judge to hear their asylum case. So this is just, he's such a liar. There's nothing truthful that comes out of that man's mouth. And you know what? When Trump was in office, and I was in DC a lot, working with the Trump administration regarding illegal immigration, talking to officials, talking to politicians, talking to law enforcement agents about, anti-sanctuary policies and making sure that we don't provide haven for these illegal criminals. When I was back there doing that a lot, let me tell you, folks, I was proud of the fact that Tom Homan was in charge of ICE. And that we had a DHS, a secretary that took care of business. Under the Trump administration, he made sure that he had people in those positions who were going to take care of business. I don't even know who the director of ICE is at this point. I guess I should look it up because we never hear about them. Because Mayorkas is the main dude and whatever he says goes. And I'm telling you what, there's a lot of crime and things going on in that are being perpetrated by Cubans. And as much as I hate to say this and continue to point it out, but I'm going to, Mayorkas is a Cuban immigrant. And he's had plenty of opportunities working within the government as Deputy Secretary of DHS, working under USCIS, and now Secretary of DHS. He's had plenty of opportunity to figure out how to game the system, because that is what Mayorkas is doing. He is gaming the system. The very thing that he accuses actually it's not all, it's a very small percentage of these people who are coming across our border that Mayorkas thinks is gaming the system. Mayorkas needed to be impeached, and I'm sickened for the fact that the Democrats and the weak Republicans in Congress, in the Senate actually, didn't have the backbone to stand up to the party, to the Democratic Party, and tell them no. It's time that we took our oath seriously and we stand up for the American people. That's what's lacking in DC. They're all just a bunch of puppets doing exactly what their party leaders tell them to do. And, that's why there's so much discord in DC, also within the Republican Party. And it's not just in DC, it's locally also, because you have party leaders and party behind the scene leaders who think that they run the show and they're going to tell every elected official how they're supposed to vote on something. And if they don't vote and toe the line, then you can be guaranteed there's going to be a media barrage of hit pieces on them and talk show hosts talking about them and news media attacking them. But you know what? We need more of those types of people to stand up. I was just watching a debate last night in Congressional District 4 here in Arizona, and you've got a Dr. Jazar, you've got Dr. Giles, and you've got Kelly Cooper, and then you've got Jerome Davison, and they're all running for Congressional District 4 here in Arizona. So Dr. Giles and Dr. Jazar, they're very unknown people. They're not very favorable. There's been a lot of things that Jazzar has done in the past that has made his support of Trump kind of questionable. And, this is what we need to look for is candidates that are going to be going to DC because Trump's going to be our next president. And you've got to have a Congress who's willing to work with, America. America first. That's the agenda that we have to have people elected into office for. Dr. Giles is, he's just not the type of candidate that I'm drawn to. You've got Kelly Cooper, and, I'm going to say this. I mean, I'm a candidate here in Arizona, and I'm probably, risking a few things saying this, but I'm just the kind of person, I got to be honest about things, folks. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I was watching this debate and I was really, really disappointed in Kelly Cooper. The smirking, the laughing, the saying things under his breath when other candidates were speaking, like he is the only person up on the stage who could possibly be a candidate. That type of attitude towards other candidates, the smirking, that type of thing, and laughing and making all of these facial expressions while another candidate is speaking is disrespectful. And if that's the way they're going to be on a debate stage, what are they going to be doing in Congress? That's a clear indication you can't work with others. You're not going to play nice. You're going to think that what you say is it, and you're important above everybody else. We need somebody who can get to DC and work across the aisle and bring Congress together when it comes to important things. Jerome Davison is the only candidate in Congressional District 4 who's going to be able to pull that off. And he's going to make darn sure that the border wall gets built. If he has any say in it as a member of Congress, if there's anything that comes to Congress to vote for funds, he's going to make sure that this funding from Ukraine is pulled and it's used towards funding for the wall. So anyway, that's my take on CD4 in Arizona. Jerome Davison is the candidate to vote for. He's going to get to Washington and he's going to fight for us. He understands. I've had many, many conversations with him about the amount of illegal alien crime happening in this country. He gets it. He knows. He understands the importance of a wall. He has supported Trump since Trump came down that elevator in 2015. He's been a Trump supporter the whole time. Anyway, I want to get on to some of these other articles because I'm telling you, some of these crimes that are being committed right now are absolutely making me sick. I get to talking about something and my mind just goes here, there, and everywhere, right? We all do that. All right, so that was that. There was an article, I'm not going to pull it up because it's in Spanish, but I've got the interpretation here, but it's in a bunch of little paragraphs. So some illegals, well, some Hondurans sent their children alone. I guess the mother was already up here. So they sent the children alone with traffickers and brought the kids up to her. And so she's been sitting on the banks of the Rio Grande, and the Texas National Guard won't let them over. And the mother says, they are very rude. Honestly, we are not doing anything wrong or assaulting them so that they can attack us. But the Texas National Guard has had to use some tear gas and different things to get these people back. And there was another one. Let's see. So these Venezuelan, these gang members, they use the CBP scan 1 to get into the United States. They crossed into the jungle for 2 days. And at 10 days, they were already in Mexico, but crossing Mexico has been very difficult. In some places, this one woman from Venezuela was saying, my husband has worked, and others we have had to ask. The train left us 2 days before arriving in Jimenez. In Jimenez, a window of the shelter came off and my daughter fell, and they made 7 stitches, but people helped us a lot. I guess that was her daughter was in the shelter and she fell out the window. 3 months they traveled to get up here. The first time they cooperated with the family of a pregnant migrant, they rented a hotel room and they rested for a few days. The second time he also tried to stop, but then he had to get on the freight train. The second time we were in a hotel, 2 days I spent there. 2 days after 2 days I had to leave. It was very complicated. Before I had my daughter, before I had a cesarean section, I never felt discomfort. Now I suffer from everything horrible. It's like my face, my belly, my legs. She has also experienced menstruation with great physical and emotional wear and tear since she thought that this trip would be much easier. In the 3 months of crossing, she's lost 10 kilos. Since when leaving Venezuela, she weighed 64 kilograms and now weighs 53. You should have thought about all of this, but she's waiting to cross the border to be able to meet in Nebraska with her brother, who entered the United States 6 months ago with an appointment generated through the CBP One mobile application, which she has not achieved for 2 months since she began to apply. She can't read or write, and so she is hoping to get a job that allows her to support her family. But Education Without Borders is promoted by the National Institute of Adult Education, and the objective of the program is to provide educational care to migrants who are in Mexico so that they learn to read and write. Likewise, they initiate and continue and conclude to certify the basic level. Listen, this is what should be being done, but it's not. And these people aren't preparing to come here to the United States. They just think they're going to cross the border and life's going to be hunky-dory. Well, it's not, because if you don't speak the language and if you can't read English and perform simple duties at a job and take direction and read a sign on the road as you're driving without your driver's license and without your insurance, life's going to be pretty difficult for you. So that was one big long article that was talking about a lot. So this is Cuba headlines. And, sometimes you got to go to other media sources in order to get some information that the American media does not show you. So Miami-Dade leads in U.S. in dengue cases, largely linked to travel from Cuba. So you have these people who come from Cuba, and they come over here because they fear for their lives. They're claiming asylum. And what do? They go on vacation, they go back home to Cuba, and then come back. If you're so afraid for your life, what are you going back to Cuba for? But this travel back and forth with Cuba is what's a part of this 180 dengue cases, with 173 associated with individuals returning from a dengue epidemic area within 2 weeks prior to symptoms onset. So it's big down in Florida is where this is happening. So, and in New York ranks second with the number of infections, with 114 cases, all imported. The CDC reminds the public that dengue symptoms typically begin a few days after being bitten, but can take up to 2 weeks to develop. Fever, nausea, vomiting, rash, headache, eye pain, joint and muscle pain. And let's see. Why is Miami-Dade experiencing such a high number of cases? Because it's primarily due to travelers returning from Cuba. They have a dengue epidemic going on right now. Health authorities are working to prevent the disease from spreading to the local mosquito population before the summer rains. And I don't know. I guess the big question that I would have is, if somebody comes back from there and they're bitten by a mosquito while they're here in the United States, does that mosquito now carry that if they've bitten a person who's been infected with that previous? Is it already in their bloodstream? That would be the big question I would ask. And with summer coming, we do need to be concerned about that here in the United States, especially down in those humid areas like Florida, where they do have a ton of mosquitoes. All right, so let's go back to New York now. And so brawling migrants battered bit cops who turned up to break up the fight at the Roosevelt Hotel. Oh, geez, here we are hearing about the Roosevelt Hotel again. So 2 groups of brawling migrants ganged up on a pair of New York police officers who arrived to break up a fight in the Roosevelt Hotel on May 19th. They were battering the cops and biting one. Both cops were taken to the hospital with minor injuries, and 4 migrants were arrested, 3 of whom were free after prior arrests, according to sources. Police responded to the 45-story street hotel, which has been converted to house asylum seekers, around 2:15 p.m. to respond to a reported dispute between the migrants. Inside the hotel, the cops were surrounded by the 2 groups, similar to the Times Square attack on New York officers in January. One officer was bitten in his left arm and bruised on his left leg. Another cop suffered injuries to his head, right elbow, and wrist. One of the assailants also tried to steal his hat as a trophy. One of the officers' cameras fell off in the fracas and someone stole it, so their body cam did. Both officers were transported to the hospital. Hotel resident Kennedy Jesus Moravez Lugo was charged with assaulting a police officer. Another one who also lives in the hotel was charged with assaulting a police officer, and he was previously charged twice for stealing clothes and kitchenware from TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Another one was charged with attempted robbery for trying to grab the police officer's hat. He has a previous domestic violence charge. Another one, 19-year-old, was charged with robbery and obstructing governmental administration charges. He was also arrested in February for criminal possession of stolen property. Prosecutors requested between $10,000 to $30,000 partially secured bond for each defendant. All of them were granted supervised release by a judge. So these migrants are now attacking police officers. They get away with it. They get released without bond. And this is why we're seeing more of it happen, because there's absolutely no consequences for these people attacking police officers in broad daylight. None. They know it. Why wouldn't these gang members come up here from Venezuela? You know, in Venezuela, they were captured and they were put in those prisons probably half the time without a trial. And so why would they want to come up here? Shoot, they get a slap on the wrist and they're allowed back out to commit more crimes. Let's see. That's another big, long story of somebody coming across the border. Okay, Border Patrol. I have got to talk to somebody and figure out the right way to pronounce the name of this gang. Serious threat. Agents arrest 10 members of the infamous Venezuelan prison gang at the southern border. So they apprehended 10 foreign nationals affiliated with an international prison gang over the Memorial Day weekend, highlighting the threat emanating from the U.S.-Mexican border. U.S. Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens announced the arrest of the 10 who were affiliated with the Tren de Agua, an international criminal organization originating in Venezuela, whose members have been behind numerous high-profile crime cases across the United States. They confirmed that the gang members will be processed for deportation. They'll be back, right? They'll just go to another area. Latin American gangs have adopted this new tactic to enter the United States. Look at how scary this dude is. These are these gang members that Mayorkas could care less. are coming across our border to threaten us. Younger members of a certain Latin American gangs are opting not to get tattoos in order to more easily enter the U.S., according to gang experts who spoke with the Daily Caller News. Tattoos are the easiest way to determine whether or not a migrant is a gang member because intelligence sharing with their home countries are limited. However, if they are identified as a gang member, it does not really mean anything from an immigration perspective. Younger members of Latin American gangs aren't getting tattoos that show their affiliation in order to enter the U.S., and the tactics of not getting tattoos is commonly used by young MS-13 and Venezuela's El Tren de Agua members who are trying to enter the U.S. and skirt border authorities. Border Patrol have arrested 515 illegal aliens with gang affiliations nationwide between October of 2022 and July of 2023, with 156 of them having ties to MS-13. Listen, you can be guaranteed that there's way more than 515. That's just the amount that the Border Patrol has arrested at the borders. But you can be guaranteed there's a ton of them that are coming over where there's not border security and are, well, we know this because of the crimes they're committing in the big cities. So, however, even if these older gang members with tattoos are identified as a gang member, it does not really mean anything from an immigration perspective. Of course not, because Mayorkas is in charge. Tattoos are the easiest way to detect gang members. Thaddeus Cleveland, the Texas Terrell County Sheriff, said, who previously served as a Border Patrol agent. And they're getting smarter. And I know my son knew that. They would take pictures of certain tattoos that some of the gang criminals here in Mesa had, and they had a book of them, and they'd be able to go through once they found out from those people what gang they were associated with. But the MS-13 consists mostly of immigrants from El Salvador or their family members. The gang engages in killing rivals and extorting legitimate businesses run by legal Central American immigrants and legal prostitution and gambling businesses. The El Tren de Agua is a Venezuelan gang with influence across Latin America that is known for extortion, hitmen, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation. So these are the wonderful people that Mayorkas thinks, they're just coming here for a better life. They may be ganging the system, gaming the system, but and they have tattoos all over their body. But yeah, let's let them in. Let's give them a chance. Border Patrol previously released the alleged Virginia gun violence suspects, and it includes an MS-13 member. This was back in August of last year, so that's kind of an old article. Let me get to some of the newer ones. These ones that this is interesting. There's always something that going on. These criminals who come over our border, they'll do anything and everything to be able to stay here. I don't know. Let me get rid of this. Let me pull this article up again. Oh, some of those ads are so annoying, aren't they? Can't open an article or read it unless you go into their site. So illegal immigrants use Facebook black market to work in New York City. They buy fake IDs and access human smuggling services. So let me get down here. During an investigation into how illegal immigrants are working in New York, Frontlines Turning Point USA reporter Savannah Hernandez uncovered that illegal immigrants are using various pages on Meta's Facebook to access Uber, DoorDash, and Instacart delivery accounts. They sell fake IDs and advertise human smuggling services that help migrants illegally cross into the United States. And she goes in to talking about all of this. Let me see.
This is how illegal immigrants are using Meta's Facebook to buy fake IDs and social security cards, access human smuggling services, and illegally work for Uber, DoorDash, and Instacart in online flea markets. For example, this page titled Obtain Your License to Drive from the United States Here advertises multiple fake driver's licenses in several videos alongside fake social security cards and even credit scores. As you scroll through this page, the seller even advertises that his IDs can pass an authenticity check, passing IDs under a black light, revealing a hologram security feature typically applied to real government-issued driver's licenses. These fake licenses are advertised for every state, and we reached out to the owner of this page, who confirmed that he could create an ID for us in whichever state that we needed. He then sent us instructions on what information he would need to create the fake driver's license. And by the way, his page is one of many advertising this service across the US. Now, you would typically need an ID or social security number to work for Uber Eats, for example. So this is one way illegal immigrants can have access to IDs. Or you can go the route of finding advertisements on Facebook pages promoting the activation or rental of Uber Eats, DoorDash, or Instacart accounts. On these pages, migrants can buy an already activated food delivery account or rent one out from another user. One woman posted an image reading "Rent account for DoorDash" in Spanish. We reached out to her to ask her how much she was renting the account for, to which she responded that it was $500. Alongside a driver's license and social security number, a bank account is also something a migrant might need to start a food delivery account. Luckily for them, that's also something that can be rented out. On the Latinos in the Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, and Brooklyn Facebook page, we found someone renting out a bank account for $25 a week. But before migrants can even access illegal work in the US, they need to make it into the country first. And luckily for them, Facebook also allows the advertisement of human smuggling services on their platforms too. One page titled Coyote 502 boasts almost 100,000 followers, with this page regularly posting videos of large groups of migrants walking through and being smuggled throughout Mexico. In the comments of these videos, migrants are told they can be brought over from Mexico into the US within 20 minutes. Other migrants who have used the smuggling service post selfies and videos of their walk, and other smugglers comment counter offers promising to smuggle migrants in even faster and cheaper than their counterpart. The Coyote 502 page has also posted videos driving throughout U.S. cities and walking migrants through Sonora, Mexico. On another page called Flea Market of Phoenix, we found a smuggler who advertised his services by posting a video of migrants climbing over the border wall. The page we found him on, by the way, has over 72,000 followers. Now, after seeing his advertisement, we reached out to him asking him to clarify his services, to which he responded with El Brinco, meaning the jump. He then commented that his service would be fast, easy, and secure, and then he sent us two videos. One was that original ad of the smugglers hoisting a ladder and bringing people over the border wall, and another advertised the trail he uses, sharing that he could get us over from Mexico into the US in 30 minutes or less. As we continued asking questions, he transferred over from written text to voice messages as a way to discuss his services without putting admissions of illegal activity in writing. He verbally gave us pricing, sharing that it would be $7,500 per person, adding that he would give us a $1,000 per person finder's fee for every migrant we referred to him. And again, this is one of many pages advertising these services across the US. Now, typically creating or obtaining a fake form of identification or smuggling a human being across the border would be a felony, and working illegally would result in deportation. However, Meta is allowing this illegal activity to take place on Facebook every single day, and these online flea markets can be found in every city and state across the US, even those that don't have sanctuary laws for illegal immigrants.
So, isn't that interesting that Facebook is allowing this sort of thing to go on their pages? Fake government IDs, human smuggling, human trafficking, which, will probably turn into sex trafficking at some point if women are involved, and even young boys probably. But this is the type of thing that is allowed on Facebook. This is the type of thing that Mark Zuckerberg could care less about. But you better not put anything pro-Trump during an election year on Facebook, because you will be censored, you will be suspended, you will be, taken off of that platform forever, right? But when it comes to breaking the law, by all means, come one, come all. So, a lot of these illegals who are doing these Instacart and the food services, delivering them to the house, that's where a lot of these crimes are happening, where if a woman answers the door, there have been some rapes and some assaults that have happened, and robberies, because a lot of these gang members are getting those kind of jobs. It's going to get desperate as time goes on, because there's too many people and not enough jobs and not enough houses and not enough places for these people to live. So it's going to be getting worse. And I keep saying, we think the summer of love was bad. I think this summer is going to be explosive as we get into the fall too. Anyway, I just wanted you guys to listen to that report, because people don't realize how easy it is for these people to get this sort of thing and get jobs and be here. Oh, this article, be here and get jobs and then commit crimes. All right, that's that article on Mayorkas. And this is another one. I'm pulling them up so that it's a little easier. I can pull them one right after another. That senator made a good point. I want to bring that one up. And there's so many, it's like, I don't know. We're going to go through these really quickly because I'm running out of time. Okay. So Syrian nationals were arrested by Texas DPS just outside of Eagle Pass in Maverick County. Both say they lived in Venezuela and were headed to Houston, Texas. They were among a group of 31 who crossed into Maverick County today, 18 males and 13 females from Colombia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Peru, Honduras, Venezuela, and the Dominican Republic and Syria were transported and jailed for criminal trespass at the Valverde Processing Center. That's quite the collection of countries that these people have come for. A lot of them have a lot of crime, and Peru and Ecuador have been really affected by the Venezuelan gang members who've come into those countries and are committing crimes against their people. And Chile too. Chile's got some little gang offsprings because of the Venezuela gang presence in their country. So there's a lot of crazy things going on when it comes to, you never know who's coming into your country, and they don't vet them. They don't care. This is a nice one. 14-year-old girl is accused of murdering her grandmother, and she faces a Broward County judge. Now, 14-year-old Sophia, this is her. And she came here, I think it was 6 months ago, from Ukraine. And her father had taken her phone away hours before that and had left her with her grandmother to go. He was going to see a friend. And when he came home, he found his mother, this young girl's grandmother, on the floor, beat up. And they ended up calling, and the ambulance came and got her and took her to the hospital, and she died. So here's a Ukrainian girl here, 14 years old, who killed her grandmother because she couldn't get her cell phone. And I know this sort of things happen, in our country, but these are crimes that should not be committed or should not be happening here because these people shouldn't be here. Florida officer shot suspect who drove a stolen car at him. So this was down in Florida, and they had stopped. They were stopping him. He's facing aggravated assault. They were stopping him, and he decided, because he was driving a stolen BMW that they were on the lookout for. They were trying to pull him over, and he decided to try and drive in and run down the police officers. And he's from Cuba, so a wonderful Cuban criminal trying to run down and kill a police officer down in Florida. So this is very interesting, and this may be the last one that I share, but Illinois senator, we raised your taxes $1 billion just to spend it on migrants. So Illinois has passed its largest tax hikes in state history with nearly $1 billion in new taxes in a $53 billion budget. But the state has also dispersed nearly as much as a tax hike on migrant spending alone. So the tax hike disgusted Republican State Senator Dan McConkey. He noted almost the entirety of the tax hike is going to more spending on Joe Biden's migrant problem in Illinois. And he told his constituents that the legislature raised your taxes just to spend on migrants. Look, folks, that's happening across this country in a lot of different states. And it's disgusting. An illegal alien mother, here she is, wonderful model citizen who came across our border illegally. She's accused of letting this illegal man rape her daughter, her 12-year-old daughter. An illegal alien mother of a 12-year-old girl is accused of allowing him to sexually assault her daughter in Fond du Lac County in Wisconsin. Let's see. She's from Nicaragua, and he is. He's a 31-year-old illegal from Nicaragua who came in October of 2021, and he's been arrested and charged with first-degree sexual assault, child enticement, strangulation, and false imprisonment. The girl said that this guy is the boyfriend of her mother, and accordingly, he paid her more than $250 to be alone with the woman's 12-year-old daughter, and she got in the van with her mother, and before they got to her boyfriend's house, her mother told her to get in the back seat, and she went into the house, and her boyfriend came out, got in the van, and drove off, and parked it, and climbed in the back seat with the girl whom he then allegedly sexually assaulted. She was able to break free and run away, and she eventually made it to a residence where she was able to call the police and report the incident. Believe it or not, both of the mother and the boyfriend are in local custody on $1 million cash bail each. Surprising that they've been held like that. Let's see. The last one, I won't have a chance to show it, but an illegal alien was arrested in Florida on a DUI crash that left two people seriously injured. He was extremely drunk and drove erratically, and now we've got more families that are affected by that. Anyway, that's the end of our show. I hope you share some of these stories. If you're not following the Angel Families Facebook page, please do. I post the majority of these articles on there, and make the followers of Angel Families aware of the amount of crime that's being committed in this country by Mayorkas's precious illegal alien friends that he's letting across our border. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you all. And Bella knows that it's time to be over. Come here. Say goodbye. Say goodbye to everybody. Say bye-bye. We will see you all on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.